The moon hung high above the valley of Valerian, its silver light pouring over the ancient stone courtyard where the ceremony was about to begin. The air trembled, not from wind but from the weight of expectation. Every year, the Alpha King of the North Pack held this ceremony, a ritual older than memory, to find the one woman whose scent would complete his bond, whose heartbeat would silence the storm inside him. And every year, one by one, the women failed. Tonight would be no different. At least that's what everyone whispered. I stood far behind the gathered crowd, wrapped in a plain gray cloak that hid most of my face. The mark of an omega burned faintly beneath the fabric of my sleeve, the lowest rank, the unseen, the unheard. We weren't supposed to be here. Omegas never were, but I had been chosen to serve, as a helper, nothing more. My task was simple: keep the ceremonial fire burning. Don't look up, don't speak, don't draw attention. Yet as the drums began to beat, something deep in my chest stirred, a pulse that didn't belong to me. It was as if the rhythm of those drums called to something buried under my skin. The gates opened, and he walked in. The Alpha King, Kael Dravon, taller than myth, with eyes the color of the storm that breaks mountains. His black armor gleamed under the moonlight, every step echoing power, control, and danger. The crowd bent to their knees, heads lowered, breaths caught, but I couldn't look away. "Bring them forward," his voice commanded, smooth, deep, and laced with something primal. One by one, the women of noble blood stepped out. Each presented herself to him, proud, beautiful, confident. And each time the same thing happened. He would draw closer, inhale their scent, touch their wrist where the bond mark would bloom. And then, nothing, no light, no mark, no bond. He would turn away with a quiet "next," and the girl would be escorted off in silent humiliation. By the 10th woman, the murmurs started. By the 15th, even the beta looked uneasy. And by the 20th, Kael's jaw clenched, fury flickering in his eyes like a beast caged too long. I should have looked away, but I didn't. I felt the air change. A strange pull, a soft tremor under my skin, like the world whispering my name. No, not my name, my scent. I froze. The Alpha's head snapped up. His eyes, wild and sharp, cut through the sea of faces. He was searching, and when his gaze found me, the entire world stopped breathing. The drums fell silent. The wind died, even the moon seemed to dim. "You," he said. One word, rough and low, yet it sliced through the air like thunder. Every eye turned to me, an omega. No one spoke. The silence pressed against my chest, heavy as stone. I wanted to step back, to disappear. But my feet refused. My heart beat like a trapped bird, wild and terrified. Yet beneath the fear, something else thrummed. Recognition. Hunger. A pull older than choice. Kael stepped down from the altar, each movement deliberate, lethal. His scent, dark cedar, frost, and danger, wrapped around me as he stopped a breath away. He raised his hand. I should have knelt. Instead, I trembled. He touched my wrist. The moment his skin brushed mine, the world ignited. A light burst beneath our skin, silver and burning, the ancient mark of the Moonbond flaring alive. Gasps echoed through the crowd. The fire roared higher, and Kael, the alpha who had rejected every woman for 3 years, inhaled sharply, his eyes glowing gold. "It's her," he whispered. "The silent one." The high priest dropped to his knees. "The bond is real, my king." But the joy in their voices felt distant, because behind the light, behind the power, I saw something in Kael's eyes that wasn't relief. It was fear, and in that moment, I understood. This bond wasn't a blessing. It was a curse. The night didn't end with applause. It ended with silence. Heavy, dangerous silence. When the Moonbond mark flared across my wrist, I thought I'd die from the heat of it. But the real fire came after, when the whispers began. "She's an Omega. This is a mistake. The bond can't be real." I wanted to shrink into the shadows again, to hide behind the veil of insignificance that had always protected me. But it was too late. The Alpha's gaze was fixed on me, intense, searching, almost afraid. "Bring her forward," the high priest ordered. 2 guards stepped in, their hesitation obvious. They weren't used to touching an Omega in front of the king. I took a breath, then walked on my own. My legs trembled, but my spine refused to bow. Something inside me, something not mine, kept me moving. Kael watched every step. His golden eyes were unreadable, but the tension in his jaw spoke louder than words. I could feel the pull between us, electric, magnetic, wrong. It hummed through the air like thunder waiting to strike. When I reached the altar, he turned away sharply. "This bond cannot be accepted." The words sliced through me. The crowd gasped. The high priest stumbled. "My king, the mark appeared." "Then the moon herself has erred," Kael snarled. "An Omega cannot be queen." The words stung deeper than claws. I wanted to speak, to defend myself, but Omegas didn't speak unless commanded. Still, the pulse beneath my wrist burned brighter, as if the moon herself refused to be silenced. Kael's hand twitched toward me. Then he pulled back, as though touching me again would make the curse real. "Take her to the eastern quarters," he ordered. "Isolate her until dawn." The guards obeyed. I didn't resist as they led me through the marble halls of the citadel. My mind spun with questions, memories, fear. Was it truly fate, or something darker? When they left me in a cold chamber, I finally exhaled. The room was bare except for a window overlooking the mountains, where the moon hung lower now, almost bleeding into the horizon. I pressed my hand to my mark. It still shimmered faintly beneath my skin. That's when I heard it. A growl. Deep, restrained, too close. The shadows near the window shifted. He was there. Kael. His eyes glowed faintly in the dark. "You should be terrified," he said quietly. "Do you understand what you've done?" I forced myself to meet his gaze. "I didn't do anything." "You felt it too." His jaw tightened. "Yes," he whispered, as if the truth itself pained him. "And that's what terrifies me." He stepped closer, the scent of frost and cedar filling the room again. His aura was suffocating, alpha power bleeding through the air like storm pressure before lightning. But beneath that dominance was something else. Conflict. Pain. "The last Omega who bore that mark," he said, "burned her pack to ash." I froze. He turned his head slightly, eyes distant. "It's not just a bond. It's a tether to something ancient, something that destroyed my bloodline once before." The moon doesn't make mistakes, but she makes warnings. And you are one. His words should have frightened me. But what scared me more was how calm my voice sounded when I replied. Then why are you still here? For a moment he didn't answer. Then his expression softened, barely. Because the bond doesn't let me leave. The silence that followed was almost tender. Our breaths mingled in the cold. The mark on my wrist pulsed once. His did too. I saw it glow faintly beneath his sleeve. He noticed my gaze and pulled back instantly. You'll stay here until I find a way to break this. His tone was final, but it trembled with a shadow of uncertainty. Do not speak of what happened. Do not step beyond this door. He turned to leave, but just before he did, he stopped at the threshold, his voice low and rough. What's your name? For the first time that night, I let the truth fall between us. Lyra! Kael's hand lingered on the door. Lyra? He repeated softly, almost like a prayer, or a warning to himself. Then he left. The lock clicked, and I was alone again. But not for long, because when the moon finally slipped behind the mountains, I felt a pull in my chest so strong it nearly knocked me to my knees. The mark on my wrist burned white-hot. Something, or someone, was calling me from the dark woods beyond the citadel walls. And deep down, I knew it wasn't human. The pull began as a whisper behind my ribs, a thread tugging me toward a door that wasn't there. I pressed my palm to the cold stone and felt nothing but the quiet, caged thud of my own pulse. Then the mark on my wrist flared, and the bolt slid back by itself with a soft, stunned click. I didn't ask why. I didn't even breathe. I pulled the door open and stepped into a corridor that smelled of old smoke and winter water. No guards. No footsteps. Only the moon's pale spill down an empty hall. The citadel at night was a skeleton of light and shadow. Banners hung like sleeping wings. Iron sconces held the last orange tongues of dying flame. Somewhere below, a watch bell murmured the hour, and somewhere above, a chain creaked as if a ghost had turned in its sleep. I moved like a shadow the moon had forgotten, gray cloak hiding my face. My feet remembering the quiet paths only the ignored ever learn. The pull yanked again, harder. I crossed an open courtyard where frost silvered the stone. A carved wolf's head jutted from the wall, jaws parted around a guttering torch. As I passed it, my mark brightened, and a low, almost inaudible hum passed through the metal, as though something inside it recognized me. Beyond the courtyard lay a postern gate meant for deliveries. Its heavy bar was down. The chain was locked. I didn't try to lift it. I simply placed my wrist against the wood. Light bled through the grain. With a groan, the bar rose, like a drawn breath released. Cold air shouldered into me, raw and clean, tasting of pine and distant snow. The world outside the walls stretched in layers, the sloping meadow, the tree line black with age, the mountains like the spines of sleeping beasts. The moon had lowered, fat, heavy, watchful. The pull led me toward the woods. I went, grass crackled under my boots. A herd of deer froze, heads up, their ears bright as knives in the moonlight, then vanished into veils of fog. The further I walked, the more the sounds of the citadel fell away, until the only noises left were the quiet negotiations of the forest. Branches stitching and unstitching in the wind, owls taking opinions, a creek arguing with its stones. I stepped beneath the first pine and felt the dark close over me like water. The pull turned from a thread to a current. It skimmed the inside of my bones and filled my lungs until I couldn't tell if I was breathing or being breathed. My fear should have been a storm by then. It wasn't. The deeper I walked, the quieter I felt. The silence around me wasn't empty. It was listening. The path I took wasn't a path at all, but my feet knew where to put themselves. Brush bent without breaking. Brambles lifted their thorns like courtiers lifting hems. Owls watched me pass and didn't call. When I came to a fallen tree too large to cross, my mark pulsed and the trunk creaked, sagging just enough for me to climb over. At the heart of the wood, the trees parted in a ragged ring. In the ring stood a stone. It was not large, no taller than my shoulder, but it looked older than the mountains. Smooth from weather and hands, black as riverbed glass, it leaned a little, as if tired from centuries of standing guard. The ground around it was bare of needles and leaves. White wildflowers had pushed up instead, blooming out of season. Small faces turned toward the moon. I knew, without knowing how, that no one who meant harm could step inside that ring. I stepped in. The air thickened, sweet with the smell of crushed mint and old rain. The stone hummed under my fingers, low and patient. Words I didn't understand sat on its surface in shallow grooves, soft as scars. I touched the deepest line. My vision split. For a heartbeat I saw the ring as it had been in another century. Crowds kneeling, torches like constellations fallen to earth, golden eyes glinting in fur and human faces alike. A woman stood where I stood, a woman with hair like spilled ink and a crescent-shaped scar at her throat. Her wrist shone with the same silver mark that burned under my skin. Her mouth shaped a name I couldn't hear. The vision snapped. The pull vanished. It didn't fade. It cut out, clean and brutal, like a rope hacked through. The woods exhaled, and every shadow in the trees looked at me. Something moved where the pines were thickest. Not a deer, not a wolf. The sound had the wrong weight, the wrong hunger. I backed to the stone until its cold pressed the bones of my spine. My mark flickered once, like a candle warning of wind. A shape slipped free of the dark. A man cloaked and hooded. Another to my left, another behind. The way they moved made my skin pebble. Not like wolves, not like soldiers, but like crows tasting carrion. The closest one lifted his head. Moonlight licked across a jaw lined in inked sigils. "Pretty find," he said, voice thin with the kind of control that comes after too much cruelty. "You reek of him." There was laughter from the dark. "Who?" I asked, and hated that my voice was steady. "The king." He smiled like a knife. "Kael Dravon does not claim bonds he cannot keep. He certainly cannot keep this one." He lunged. The world sharpened into the exact angle of his blade and the exact distance to my throat and the exact number of breaths left inside my chest. Then the forest exploded. A gray shape hit the man midair with the weight of a falling star. The sound was wet and fast and final. The body flew, struck a trunk, slid down leaving a black smear, and then the gray shape rose from the ground and became a man again. Half wild, breath smoking, eyes molten with a light I knew better than my own reflection. Kael. He didn't look at me. He didn't have to. The bond thrummed like a string plucked close to the ear. His attention was a weapon he kept pointed outward, at the ring of men who had thought they were wolves and were about to learn the difference. He rolled his shoulders, power shivering off him like heat. "Run," he said. "I can't." His gaze cut toward me. One heartbeat, one assessment, and in it I saw what he saw. the ring of stone, the flowers that shouldn't be in bloom. My wrist lit like a brand. Understanding set his jaw. He stepped between me and the blades. The rogues, because that's what they were, not loners, but a kind of brotherhood of broken oaths, didn't retreat. They fanned, finding angles, hissing words that made the air feel greasy. I recognized none of their sigils, but my skin did. It crawled where their ink pointed. "Witch sleeper," one of them spat at me, and the term made the ground tilt for an instant. "Little Moon's mouth. You'll open it for us." Kael moved first, fast in a way that broke language. His fist found a throat, his knee found a rib cage. He fought like the forest had given him permission to be everything it feared. Two were down, wheezing in the leaves, before the third's blade found skin. Blood drew a line along Kael's shoulder. Something old inside me opened its eyes. It wasn't rage. It wasn't fear. It was the exact absence of both, a clarity that rang like struck glass. I lifted my hand without thinking. The stone behind me answered. The ring of earth answered. The flowers answered. "Don't," Kael started. Too late. Light rose from the ground. Not a flare, not a flood, but a quiet column, thin as a breath and brighter than any torch. It climbed my spine and spilled out my mouth like silent song. The forest stilled. The rogues froze, literally, stuck mid-step, mid-breath, mid-blink. Frost webbed their boots to the dirt and ran up their blades like creeping vines that ended in knives. One tried to shout. His voice fell to the ground and shattered in white dust. Another reached for me with trembling fingers. Ice kissed his knuckle and his hand forgot how to be a hand. Kael's eyes went wide. Not with fear of me. I realized, but with fear for me. "Lyra," he said. That voice out of storms gone quiet. Let it go. I didn't know how I was holding it. I didn't know how to set it down. The light coursed through me and over me and past me, on its way to somewhere not on any map. It tasted of winter apples and lullabies and the last words of the dying. It was not mine, and it was. It braided itself around the bond and tugged, testing, as if measuring the strand for fraying. The nearest rogue's eyes rolled back. A dark film, like soot on river ice, floated under his skin. He smiled at me, slow, rapturous. "There it is," he whispered, voice fogging in the cold I made. "The hollow moon." The name hit me the way cold hits a wound. Something flinched inside the light. It stuttered, faltered, then surged, desperate now, as if trying to drown a word that had learned how to swim. Kael stepped into the column, and the light did not freeze him. It parted around him like a small animal recognizing a larger one it belonged to. He caught my wrist without touching, hands braced on either side, enclosing air. "Listen to me," he said, steady, slow. "This power answers intention, not fear. Not rage. Yours." "I don't—" "You do," he said, and a line between his brows softened. "You're the quietest thing I've ever met. Ask it to be quiet, too." I thought of a room with no doors. I thought of a winter morning before anyone had woken up, when the house is all soft edges and kitchen warmth and no one knows your name yet. I thought of the first breath after a nightmare when you realize the monster didn't follow you into the light. Be still. I thought, not to the rogues, not to Kael, not to myself, but to the river running through me. Be still and wait. The light obeyed. It closed like a hand closing around a candle flame. Darkness came back the way tides do, whispering and inevitable. The frost let go. The rogue staggered, choking, furious, terrified. Kael didn't give them time to remember how to be brave. He moved through them like a promise kept, and left them groaning in the ring or curled at the base of trees, their ink smeared, their blades spat out by the dirt. The one who had named the hollow moon crawled toward the shadows, laughing wetly. "Too late," he gurgled. "You can't keep her shut. She was made to open." Kael's boot came down on his wrist. Bone made a sound I won't forget. The laughter didn't stop, but it lost something. The man spat blood, smiled red, and went boneless. Silence fell again. The right kind this time. The kind that belonged to deer and owls and stones. I swayed. Kael caught me before the ring stone had to. His hands were careful. He held me like he was afraid of bruising something he needed. His shoulder bled down his sleeve, warmer than the night. "You followed the pull," he said. I couldn't not. He glanced at the stone. "She wanted you here." "She?" He didn't answer. He guided me to sit on the low root of an old pine, whose bark looked like char. I only then realized it truly was charred, as if lightning had loved it once and left a black kiss to prove it. He tore a strip from his own cloak and bound his shoulder with the indifference of a man who will remember to hurt later. "The hollow moon," I said, the name a splinter in my mouth. "What is it?" His jaw worked like the word he had to say had teeth. "A door." He looked at my wrist where the mark lay quiet as an animal in a lap. Silver dim and tender. A door the moon made when the world was new. And then she locked it. Once, long ago, an Omega wore that lock. When she died, the key burned through her descendants until it found someone who could hold both. "Silence," Kael said, eyes on mine. "And power." A wind ran through the pines as if something huge had passed high overhead. The white flowers around the stone turned their faces toward me. It felt like being prayed to by something that had never learned how to speak. "I don't want to be a door," I said. His mouth tilted, not quite a smile. "You're not. You're the person in the doorway, the one who chooses which way it swings." A tremor ran through the ground, a shiver. Nothing more. As if something under miles of rock rolled in its sleep. We both felt it. Kael rose, gaze cutting the black trees, nostrils flaring. His wolf was close enough to the skin that it grew into his posture. Weight forward, head slightly angled, every sense a drawn bow. "We have to go," he said. "Back to the Citadel? For now." He hesitated. Glanced at the stone again. "There are stories even my father didn't tell. I'd rather read them with walls at my back." He helped me up. "My legs shook in the way they do after you come off a ship and find the land has invented a new way to move without you." We stepped out of the ring. The temperature dropped a degree. Ordinary cold returning like an old acquaintance with tired eyes. I looked back. For a second, the woman from my vision stood where I had, hair black, eyes bright and full of a grief shaped exactly like mine. She lifted her hand, palm outward, and the scar at her throat shone like a new moon. "Do you see her?" I whispered. "See who?" Kael asked. "No one." The word made the trees lean closer, listening. We moved through the forest together, the bond a quiet line running between us, neither of us tugging on it, both of us aware of its heat. The rogues did not follow. The owls did not gossip. When we reached the edge of the trees, frost slicked the grass, and the Citadel's black shoulders hunched against the night like a beast facing weather. It understood but did not welcome. "Lyra," Kael said as the postern gate loomed, the first steel of dawn ghosting the east. "There will be questions. I know. And dangers. I know. He looked at me. Really looked this time. Past the mark. Past the power. To the person who had walked into a forest because a pull had asked. Something eased in his face. Not trust, not yet, but the ghost of it. If anyone comes for you again, he said, voice low and iron, they'll go home missing the parts they brought. Before I could answer, the bar inside the gate lifted itself with a moan. The lock rolled open like an eye. The door swung wide to a corridor filling slowly with light. We stepped in. The gate shut. Far behind us, in the black center of the wood, a second tremor went through the earth. Longer, heavier, closer to waking, and for the first time, I understood why the Alpha King had been afraid when he saw the mark blaze on my skin. This bond was not a blessing, it was a warning that the door in the dark had found its hinge. The citadel greeted dawn like a wounded animal, silent, watchful, bleeding light through stone cracks. When Kael and I crossed the threshold, the world outside shut like a door behind us. No guards saw us enter. No servants stirred. It was as if the fortress itself held its breath. I should have felt safe within its walls. Instead, I felt the way prey must feel after running into a hunter's den. Kael walked ahead of me through the long corridor, his footsteps echoing like distant thunder. The scent of smoke followed him, wolf and metal and blood. His shoulder wound had clotted, but the line of it beneath his torn shirt kept dripping in silence. I wanted to speak, to ask if he was in pain, but my throat felt trapped between too many words and too little courage. At the end of the corridor, two great doors loomed, iron carved with the crest of the Dravon bloodline, a wolf devouring the moon. The torches beside them burned blue instead of gold, feeding on old magic that shimmered faintly in the air. He pushed the doors open without ceremony. Inside, the hall of the Alpha Kings stretched endlessly, its walls lined with statues, each one carved in the likeness of rulers long dead. Some faces bore the same eyes as Kael. Others were disfigured by cracks that looked like claw marks. "This is where it began," he said quietly. I followed his gaze to the far end of the hall. A raised platform, a throne carved from obsidian, and behind it, a mural faded by time. A woman stood in its center, painted in silver and shadow. The same woman I had seen in the forest vision. Her eyes looked alive even now, centuries later. "Who was she?" I asked. Kael's voice dropped. "The first bond. The first curse." He stepped closer to the mural, running a hand over its cracked surface. "They called her the lunar consort. She wasn't meant to exist. The moon gave her power equal to the Alpha Kings. Together they were supposed to rule balance between beast and blood, but something went wrong. She drew too deeply from the hollow moon." His jaw tightened. "And she became what the world now calls the devourer of wolves." A chill rippled through me. The woman's eyes seemed to follow me wherever I moved, her expression a blend of sorrow and hunger. "Do you think I'm her?" I whispered. Kael turned sharply. "No," the word was too fast. "Too defensive. I think you're what comes next," he added, softer now, as if afraid of his own truth. Before I could speak, the doors behind us slammed open. The beta stormed in, armor clanking, face pale. "My king, the council demands your presence. The mark has spread through the bloodstone sigil. Your bond is echoing through the entire northern Pax." Kael's head snapped toward him. "That's impossible. The ritual was broken. It wasn't, the beta said grimly. It's awakening. Kael swore under his breath. Then he turned to me, eyes blazing, wild, conflicted. You have to stay here. Don't leave this room, no matter what you hear. He didn't wait for my answer. The doors closed behind him with a deep final thud. I stood alone before the mural. The silence grew heavy, pressing against my skin. The air shimmered faintly. The woman's painted lips curved, just slightly. And then I heard her voice. Soft. Familiar. Inside my head. You opened the door, little one. Now you must decide who walks through it. I spun around. The hall was empty, but the torches flickered violently, shadows stretching long and alive across the walls. The statues seemed to shift, their faces melting from calm to terror, their eyes hollowing. The mark on my wrist pulsed once, then again, harder. A whisper filled the air, not words, but something deeper, something alive. I staggered back, clutching my arm. Light spilled from my skin, silver and raw. The same energy I had unleashed in the forest, but stronger. It climbed the columns, ran across the ceiling, filling the air with trembling heat. And then the ground split. A growl rose from beneath the floor, low, ancient, endless. The statues cracked one by one, dust falling like gray rain. When the fissure opened, darkness poured out like smoke. A pair of eyes, massive, molten, furious, glowed beneath the floor. The voice that followed was not human. Nor wolf nor god. Finally, the moon's key returns. The floor erupted. I fell backward as claws, black as shadow, longer than daggers, tore through the stone. A shape began to rise. A creature that seemed made of both nightmare and memory. Fur like smoke, ribs glowing with ghost fire. It wasn't Kael's wolf. It was something older, something that didn't belong to this world anymore. The mural behind me shattered. The woman's painted face dissolved into the air. Whispering a single word that wasn't mine yet felt carved into my bones. Run. I turned. But before I could, something collided with the creature mid-lunge. A flash of gold. A snarl that split the air. Kael. He hit the beast with enough force to shake the hall. The two crashed across the stone, claws and fire, power and fury. The beast's growl turned into a screech that made my ears bleed. Kael's wolf was massive, silver black with golden streaks through his mane, eyes like lightning caught in a storm. But even he looked small against that ancient thing. Go, he roared in my mind. Lyra, go. But the mark on my wrist blazed again. I couldn't move. The bond held me there, rooted, burning. My pulse merged with his, our hearts beating as one rhythm of war and fear. The creature's claws ripped across Kael's side. Blood sprayed. He howled, the sound shaking the windows into spiderweb cracks. And that was when the mural's remaining fragments began to hum. The silver paint turned to light, swirling into the air like stardust. It circled me, spinning faster, faster, until I felt the same cold power from the forest flood through me again. My vision blurred. The world bent, and then I heard the same voice again, the lunar consort, clear as the moon's edge. He will die if you don't open the door. And if I do, I whispered, then you'll never close it again. My breath caught. Kael was bleeding. The creature's jaws were closing around his throat. There wasn't time to think, only to feel, so I stepped forward and let the door inside me open. Light burst out, brighter than fire, colder than death. The sound of it wasn't sound at all. It was a tremor of existence. The hall vanished into white, and somewhere, deep in that blinding storm of light, I heard Kael's voice call my name. Once. Then everything went silent. The world ended in white. No fire. No scream, no pain. Just endless light, quiet, cold, and hollow as the first breath after death. When I opened my eyes, there was no ceiling above me, no floor beneath. Only a vast silver expanse stretching forever, the kind of silence that hums louder than thunder. My fingers trembled against nothing, not air. "Am I dead?" I whispered. My voice didn't echo. It simply dissolved, like smoke swallowed by the sky. Then, from the horizon, if there even was one, shadows began to move. Slow, deliberate, graceful. They weren't people, not exactly. They looked like reflections of wolves and humans, half-formed, flickering between both. Each time they stepped closer, I heard whispers, not words, but fragments of memory. Pain, love, betrayal. The bond was never meant to be broken. The moon chooses balance, not mercy. Every alpha must bleed for his omega to rise. The voices swirled around me, their tones ancient, layered, almost melodic. I clutched my wrist. The mark glowed faintly, no longer silver, but pale gold, softer, gentler. And then a voice, not among the whispers, but above them, spoke directly to me. "You opened the door." I turned. She was standing behind me. The woman from the mural, the lunar consort. Her presence burned and froze at once, her beauty too sharp to belong to flesh, her eyes a mirror of the moon itself. Her hair flowed like ink in water, strands drifting through the air as if gravity had forgotten her. "I didn't mean to," I said, my voice shaking. "It was the only way to save him." Her gaze softened. "That's what I said once." She stepped closer, bare feet gliding over invisible ground. "And my choice ended the first kingdom of wolves." I swallowed. "Who are you, really?" "I was the first," she said. "The first Omega chosen by the moon. The first to love an Alpha who wasn't meant to love anyone." Her eyes dropped to my wrist, where the mark shimmered. "And the first fool who believed the bond was a gift." Her voice broke slightly on the last word, so human, so fragile that it hurt to hear. "What happened to you?" I whispered. "The hollow moon happened," she said. "When the moon gave me her light, she warned me, 'Love an Alpha, and you will awaken what sleeps beneath the world.' The beast is born from imbalance, too much power in one heart, too much love in one soul. The Alpha burns, the Omega breaks. Together, they create the rift." She reached out, fingertips brushing my hair as if she could remember what it felt like to comfort. "You and Kael are walking the same path, but there's still a choice." "Choice?" My voice cracked. "You said it yourself. It's already awake." She smiled sadly. "Yes, but the hollow moon only devours what it owns, and it doesn't own you yet." The ground, or the light beneath us, trembled. In the far distance, shadows began to twist violently, turning red at their edges. A low feral roar rolled across the expanse. My blood froze. Kael, I could feel him. Through the bond, faint but alive, burning like an ember under ice. "He was still fighting. Where is he?" I demanded. The lunar consort's eyes darkened. "Between life and blood, where the beast hunts." "Then take me to him." "You don't understand. I don't need to," I snapped. "He bled for me. I'll burn for him." For a long moment she only stared, as if seeing the echo of her younger self. Then slowly she nodded. "Very well. But remember this, child of the bond. When you reach him, the beast will offer you a bargain. It will promise to save him. It will whisper what you crave most. Love without fear, union without death. Don't listen. What happens if I do?" Her eyes shimmered with tears that never fell. "Then you'll take my place." The light cracked open. I fell. Not gracefully, but like the world spat me out. My body plunged through endless silver, then shadow, then storm. I gasped, and air filled my lungs again. Cold, sharp, real. I hit the ground hard. Mud rain, blood. The scent of iron filled my mouth. I pushed myself up, vision spinning. I was back in the throne hall, or what was left of it. The walls were half destroyed, the ceiling torn open to a bruised sky. The fire pits burned blue, casting ghost light over the ruins. Statues lay shattered, their faces buried in dust. The mural was gone, and Kael lay at the center of it all, half human, half wolf, his body a battlefield of wounds. His eyes glowed faintly gold, flickering between sanity and something else. The beast's shadow, enormous, shapeless, loomed behind him, feeding on the air like it was drinking his soul. "No," I crawled forward. "No, please." His gaze found me, barely focused. "Lyra?" The voice was his, but the sound beneath it wasn't. Something else spoke through him. Something cold, vast, and cruel. "You opened the door, little Omega. Will you close it again?" The beast's laughter filled the hall, not from a throat, but from everywhere. Stone cracked. The air bent. My mark blazed white-hot. Kael convulsed, his body jerking as if the thing inside him tried to split him apart. "Let him go." I screamed. "He was mine long before you," the voice hissed. "Every alpha belongs to me. I am what makes them kings." "No," I said, my voice trembling but firm. "You are what makes them slaves," the air roared. The beast's shape thickened, a form made of smoke and bone, horns coiling upward like the ribs of dead gods. Kael's body was dragged toward it, his claws scraping across stone. I ran forward, the mark on my wrist pulsing with every step. "If it's power you want, you'll give it?" The voice smiled through Kael's mouth. "You would surrender your light for a beast's heart?" I met his eyes, or what was left of them. The gold there still burned, still fought, still loved. "Yes," I said. "For him I would." The beast leaned forward, its face inches from mine, formless yet suffocating. "Then you have learned nothing from the consort." And before I could answer, it struck. Its claws tore through me, not flesh, but soul. The mark on my wrist flared so bright I couldn't see. I fell to my knees, screaming, as the world dissolved again. Only this time, there was no white, only black. And in that darkness, a heartbeat, Kael's, fading. Then another, mine, burning to meet it, and then a voice. Not the beasts, not the consorts, the moon herself, soft as snow. If love brought the curse, then let love end it. Light exploded again, gold this time, not silver. I rose, my body no longer heavy, my mark blazing like a star. The air rippled. The beast recoiled, shrieking. Kael's eyes widened. The gold inside them suddenly bright, alive. I reached for him, my palm on his chest, the mark against his heart. The world shattered around us, and together we fell once more. Not into light, not into dark, but into the space between. When the fall finally ended, there was no sound. No storm, no fire, no pain, just breath. Mine. His. Kael's heartbeat thudded beneath my hand, faint, stubborn, alive. We were lying on the edge of nowhere, a land made of light and ash, where mountains drifted like broken memories, and rivers shimmered without flowing. Above us hung a single moon, cracked down the middle, bleeding light instead of silver. It wasn't the moon of our world. It was the hollow moon. I knew it the way bones know gravity, certain, unshakable. Kael stirred beside me, groaning softly. His body was still half wolf, half man. The lines between them blurred like ink on wet parchment. When his eyes opened, they glowed brighter than they ever had, gold streaked with silver, like he carried my mark inside him now. "Lyra," he whispered, voice raw. "I'm here." He blinked, as though unsure whether to believe it. "What happened?" I looked up at the broken moon. We fell between worlds, between what we were and what we're meant to become. Before he could answer, the air shifted. A tremor that wasn't sound but recognition. The shadows around us thickened, pooling like spilled ink. Out of them rose her, the lunar consort. But not the echo I'd met before. This version was whole, alive. Her eyes burned with the cold fire of eternity. "You shouldn't have come here," she said. "No one returns from the hollow moon unchanged." "I didn't have a choice," I said quietly. "He would have died." Her gaze fell to Kael and softened. "They always do. Every alpha burns for his bond. Every omega breaks to keep him breathing." Kael struggled to his feet, blood on his lips. "If you're truly her, if you were the first, tell us how to stop this." "You can't stop it," she said. "You can only rewrite it." Her hand lifted, and the air between us rippled. 1,000 visions bloomed, brief, haunting flashes of every alpha and omega who came before. Lovers, warriors, monsters. Some died in each other's arms. Others turned on each other before the end. The bond always ended the same way. Fire, ruin, rebirth, until now. "Your bond is different," the consort said. "The moon did not make it. You did. And that means you can end it, or free it. Free it how?" She stepped closer, her expression unreadable. "The hollow moon feeds on fear, on control. It was born the first time love became possession. If you want to destroy it, you must love without claiming, protect without chaining, and choose without command." I frowned, not understanding. "You're saying I have to let him go?" Her eyes flicked to Kael. "You must set him free, even if it kills you." Kael's hand found mine instantly, fierce and desperate. "No, I won't lose you to some prophecy." His grip trembled, but his eyes were steady. "We fight together, or not at all." The lunar consort smiled sadly and faded like smoke. "Then pray your hearts are stronger than the moon's hunger." The ground cracked. Light poured from the fissures. Black light, hungry and alive. The hollow moon pulsed overhead, and from its bleeding center, something vast began to descend. It wasn't the beast anymore. It was everything the beast had been made from. Rage, envy, grief. the sound of every alpha who'd ever lost his mate, every omega who'd ever died trying to save him. It had no face, only 1,000 voices whispering the same word, mine. Kael stepped in front of me, claws bared, muscles trembling. "Stay behind me." But I didn't. I stepped beside him. The thing's shadow fell over us, cold as winter, heavy as guilt. It reached for Kael first, talons of smoke curling toward his chest. I moved before it touched him, grabbed his hand and pressed my glowing mark to his. The moment our palms met, the world ignited. Light burst between us, searing white and gold. The hollow moon screamed, an ancient breaking sound that tore through sky and time. The power inside me surged, not like fire, but like forgiveness, unstoppable, uncontainable, pure. Kael's grip tightened. His voice cut through the chaos, hoarse but steady. "Lyra, don't you dare let go." "I'm not letting go," I gasped. "I'm letting us go." He looked at me, and in that look, I saw everything we were, the pain, the fear, the stubborn, impossible love. Then I pulled him closer and kissed him. The moment our lips met, the mark exploded, not with destruction, but with release. The hollow moon shattered. Its broken halves collapsed into light, raining down like silver petals. The shadows screamed, twisting, collapsing into dust. Every voice that whispered mine turned into one soft sound. Free. When the storm ended, the world went quiet again. I was lying in Kael's arms on the throne room floor, the dawn breaking through the shattered roof. The blood was gone. The beast was gone. Only the scent of morning rain and cedar remained. His eyes opened slowly. "Are we alive?" I smiled weakly. "That depends. Do you still have that ridiculous alpha pride?" He huffed a breath that might have been a laugh, might have been a sob. "Then yes." Outside, the first sunlight poured through the ruins, striking the floor where our marks had burned. The silver had faded, replaced by something new, a faint gold pattern that shimmered like dawn itself. Not a mark of ownership, a mark of balance. Kael brushed a strand of hair from my face, his thumb trembling. "The moon is quiet," he murmured. "I can't feel her anymore." "Maybe," I said softly. "She's finally at peace." He looked at me, really looked, and for the first time since that cursed ceremony, there was no fear in his eyes. Only warmth, only home. Outside the wolves howled, and not in mourning, not in warning, but in joy. The packs had felt the bond shift. The curse was gone. Kael pulled me against him, pressing his forehead to mine. "Lyra of the silent moon," he said, voice breaking with reverence. "You were never meant to bow." I smiled through tears. "And you were never meant to rule alone." The dawn burned brighter, washing the shadows away, and in that light, our world began again. You've been listening to Every Woman Failed the Alpha's Ceremony Until a Silent Omega Stepped Forward. If you loved this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment your favorite moment below. You're watching the Alpha Love Stories, where love